Divide and conquer. Don't fall for it, or you will be conquered. I'm not making my usual type of video. This is Kathleen from Breaking the Spells. Normally, my channel is considered a video reference library for health, but this one is different. There are current issues and issues from the past that need to be talked about. I experienced my own extreme torment of racism when I was a child, and I want to tell my story. By the way, if you're not familiar with me and my channel, the reason it's called Breaking the Spells is because it's about undoing misinformation regarding health and well-being. Well, there's other misinformation that might be just as destructive as getting the wrong information about how to be healthy. And that's the issue of this divide and conquer, this racism that is on its way to becoming out of control. I want to tell you what happened to me about some racist torment that happened to me when I was in junior high school. But before that, I want to let you know what I learned in elementary school regarding blacks and whites. When I was in elementary school, I used to get teased, poked around, just harassed, my skirt lifted up, just pushed around by some black boys. It was in Detroit. And I could have, as an elementary student, I could have gotten really racist at that point. However, it was a wonderful black girl, friend, who defended me. She was my hero. And what I learned from that at such a young, tender age was you must judge people as individuals. I did not cop a toot about black people. I had the balance of having a black girl defend me. She walked me home from school every day and made sure that nobody hurt me. So I learned this way long time ago, and I never forgot it. I still remember the name of that girl, and it's been a very long time, many decades. Her name was Doris Thompson, who was my champion and my hero when I was a child. And if by some rare chance you're out there, Doris Thompson, I'm here to say thank you. So, irony of ironies, my parents moved out to a different neighborhood where I began junior high school. I was the new kid on the block. And this is a story of how I was called the N-word all during junior high school. How did that happen? I went from a black and white neighborhood, learned a lot about judging people individually, then I wind up in a white neighborhood where I'm the N-word. So, this is what happened. I was very social. I accidentally was getting popular, although I didn't really care about popularity. I got really good grades in school, easily. And I happened, and by the way, I'm Sicilian. I'm full-blooded Sicilian. And my ancestors come from the little island off of the boot of Italy. And there, they bred with some dark people. And so, yet Sicilians are considered Caucasian or white in any sense. And so what happened again was I had the opportunity to live on a lake and be in the water and sunshine as much as possible, and I dug it. I mean, I just loved it. So I got very dark. I had long dark hair, was very athletic, very fit, and somehow I was perceived as competition for what we called back then the hard guys. There were girls that they were considered, in my mind, now that we call it the elite, the new word for it that nobody even heard of back then. They were the elite of the schools. They had the power. They were the globalists. And if they wanted to just destroy somebody, they would do it. So it began as a semi-affectionate joke to call me the N-word because I got so dark. And being Sicilian and really tan, I was dark. I was the darkest one in the school. So what they did was they decided that this would really work for them to call me the N-word because there's no chance I could even be in any average sense, relatively popular. They had to cream me. I could not, by the way, it did, like cognitive dissonance requires, you have to have cognitive dissonance to go along with this, because they got the whole school, except for a handful of friends that stuck by me, to call me the N-word. I was treated like the school's N-word. They would not let me sit down on the bus. And, there was just like this big black cloud hanging over me with no matter what I did. Some of the people I had become friends with that were not in my, quote, inner circle turned. I mean, basically the whole school, but a handful of friends. And I can still remember the handful of friends. It was Carol and Cheryl Lewis, they were twins, and Laura Marks. And those were the three main ones that stuck with me and weren't ashamed to be friends with the N-word in the school. So, how did I handle this? I never retaliated. I tried to reason with them. I tried to employ the teachers, my parents, anybody I could, the few three friends I had to help me out and try to bring some reason to the situation. But they wouldn't let that have it. I mean, they wouldn't have it. And so I was tortured and just demeaned so terribly this whole time until one day, these hard girls, who were the elite globalists of the school, so to speak, cornered me in the gym and were taunting me and calling me the N-word, and I had had enough. So what I did, because I was like a cornered animal who had just been tormented, I have to back up and explain something. I held my head high. I never let them see me sweat. I only tried to reason with them. And some people just can't be reasoned with. So they pushed me into a corner in a junior high school gym. And as they all came at me, it was probably a group of at least 6 girls. I had enough. And I responded, or reacted. And I grabbed the first one in front of me, and she had this nice, wispy, fine blonde hair. No, I said black. And I grabbed her like this by the hair, and I shook it so hard that I got a huge gob of hair in each hand. You know what? I never heard that N-word again, ever. At least aimed toward me. I heard it later in life, but it never happened again. I call this pushback. And so the problem is this cognitive dissonance. These people, other people that were not in my inner circle of wonderful friends, who turned. They had no reason to call me the N-word, but in order to still be popular or not be harassed themselves, they had to call me the N-word, or at least completely treat me like the school's N-word. So what happened was they couldn't think for themselves or have the guts to stand up for what they thought for themselves. They couldn't see everybody as an individual and judge them that way. Heck, if they would have done that, they would have seen these hard girls as the real assholes. And they would have ignored them or possibly even challenged them. But this is similar to what's happening today in the world. Here's a part I left out. That's a really important part of the story. I mentioned I held my head high and I did not let them see me sweat. And the only time I so-called retaliated was when I had to pull some hair. And I never heard the N-word aimed at me ever again. I want you to know that the torment and the meanness was so bad that I used to walk home from the school bus where they dropped you off, go into the house, and sneak into the bathroom, shut the door, and cry. Every day. And yet, judging people individually and trying to have a balance and a reason in all of this. Yeah, I'm glad I pulled the hair. It was pushback that was necessary. Like, there's a lot of necessary pushback going on in the world today regarding all this divide and conquer. What I learned was to never, ever consider doing that to anybody. Not that I ever did. I was not a racist, and I was a kind person, and I was an honest person. But what I said to my intimate friends that I had, and my parents or anybody who would hear my story that wasn't at the school, that I had to explain what happened, what I said was, God let this happen to me so that I would never, ever be like that, and I would always know what it felt like to be singled out because of some version of racism. How does this apply to today? The stakes today are much higher than they were then because somebody at the top wants us to be divided so they can conquer us. Yes, there are weak-minded people who have the cognitive dissonance and they're going along with wherever the pressure is because they want to be part of a herd. I get that. However, if we start fighting with them, then the big guys at the top have what they want. There's corruption in all governments, all of them, and a lot. You kind of think of it like the way David Icke explains it, where there's the spider at the top and then there's this web and it goes down and down and down from there, relative to who's mostly instigating this. But this propaganda wants us to be divided and conquered, and we cannot be suckered into it. We have to grow up. We have to unite against this spider, these elites. And I don't mean physically fight. Obviously, I'm not that type because I had to be pushed into a corner to grab some hair. But it made it stop, and there was pushback. So we need to blame the so-called spider. We need to blame the people committing this propaganda, which is now legal. We need to focus on them because otherwise, no matter what our excuses are, we're going to fall, and we're going to be divided. And when we're divided, it's a whole lot easier to be conquered. This time I'm going to read the conclusion of my little speech here. I'm going to read it because I don't want to miss a dang word, okay? So, remember, don't be a participating sucker. Realize how others have been duped and suckered, perhaps even yourself for a while. Granted, the people who look at my channel are not racists, but we need to start putting blame where it is and trying to divert this divide and conquer. For the sake of us all, see how we were manipulated. See where this mess is heading, and maybe push back in your own way. At least judge people individually. Maybe it's time to metaphorically pull some hair, but against the real enemies, the propagators of this war. They manipulate us with this news and phony news and who knows what is they're capable of now that they can make up all kinds of crap, and we may not be able to even tell the difference. I really believe in the thing where I say, if I wasn't there, I don't know what really happened. So they think of us as these spider elite, top-notch leaders. They think of us as useful idiots, as though we're cattle being farmed, who want to starve us out to our own destruction. So don't fall for it. Grow up if you haven't already. And if you're grown up, please help others grow up and push back and pull the right hair. Thank you for listening to me.